Hello, blues and barbecue attendees. I'm very excited to be sitting here with Iowa blues and rock legend, Grammy award winning guitarist, producer, Mr. Bo Ramsey. Bo, thank you so much for taking time to talk with us.
My pleasure.
Okay, so my first question is what attracted you to blues music? Was it a love at first sound situation? Was it a slow burn? How did that go?
I have a distinct memory of being in an apartment when I was probably about 19 years old. And there was a record player on the floor, and the record was playing. And it was a sound I'd never really heard before. And I asked the guy sitting there in a chair, I said, "Who is that playing?" And he said, "That's Muddy Waters." And that's just a real kind of clear memory that I have of when I was first really kind of struck by
Mm.
the sound.
What do you think it was about that music that was playing that sort of caught your intrigue?
That's a good question. I think it's probably all of it, just the voice, the music, the groove, the lyrics, just the whole picture, and just the power of it really kind of struck me. In fact, I remember feeling like I wasn't sure that I liked it.
Mm.
It was kind of almost overwhelming, but then I went out and bought the record, and then I started buying a lot of those records, and it was a real journey, that's still ongoing.
Yeah, I like that. It's not always, adoration the first time you hear something. Like I've felt that way about punk music. Who
Yeah.
were who were some of the artists that you started buying records
Well,
for?
Muddy Waters, of course, and then Howlin' Wolf, uh,
Mm.
Little Walter, John Lee Hooker, Sonny Boy Williamson, artists like that.
Yeah.
There was a record label called Chess Records, which was based in Chicago. They had a label called Chess Records, and I started buying any Chess record I could find,
Hmm.
because they were so good.
Yeah, those are the OG guys right there.
There you go.
So you grew up in Burlington, Iowa, right?
Yeah.
And then you played your debut show in Williamsburg, Iowa. And then somehow you went through some sort of musical journey, and then you ended up playing with Lucinda Williams, Joan Baez, Elvis Costello, David Zolo. What was that? What did it take to get from debuting in Williamsburg, Iowa, and then getting to that level?
Well, it's a journey, playing music, and you go where the music takes you. And at some point, I came home from a gig. When I look back, it's all kind of a blur, but
Hmm.
I remember coming home from a gig. It was one of those kind of gigs on the turf, like where you drive a couple hours, do a gig, and then drive home,
Mm.
and it's 3 in the morning, and you got
Familiar with
one eye
that.
open. But I remember this is back in the day of answering machines when you would have a message and the light would be blinking. And I came home and went into my room and the light was blinking. And I hit the button and there was a message from Lucinda Williams on my voice machine. And
Oh
I
my
didn't
gosh.
know, I'd never met her. She goes, "Hey, this is Lucinda. I heard you, I heard your record and really liked it." Anyway, so she left a number and I called the next day. And this was quite a long time ago. She was in the process of moving from Austin to Nashville. And so I had just gotten a gig with a buddy of mine, Kevin Gordon, who had just moved to Nashville. And he had invited me down to play guitar with him. And anyway, I ended up meeting Lucinda down there. But, and that just kind of opened up a lot of things up for me.
Was she kind of a big artist at the time that she called you? Did you get like
Well,
butterflies when
let me,
you heard it was
no.
her?
Well, I was excited because I had heard her record and I really liked her record.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, oh, cool, this is good. Music brings people together, and so, yeah, I was very much looking forward to meeting her. And I did and ended up working with her. So it was all good. The first gigs that I did with her, she was not touring at the time. And she had the idea of doing a few dates with myself and a couple of other kind of unknown songwriters. And she wanted to kind of book some gigs and go out and do some shows and cast some light on myself and the other kind of unknown songwriters. And those were the first shows that I did with her. And it was kind of a writers in the round kind of show. It was
Right.
me and Lucinda and a guy named Steve Young and a guy named R.B. Morris. And then she put out Car Wheels on a Gravel Road, and she offered me a job playing guitar behind that record because I played on a couple songs on that record.
Mm-hmm.
And that record won a Grammy as well.
Right.
So I did some shows behind that record.
Were you super excited about that? Was that like a huge time for you?
Yeah, I was excited, yes.
That's so cool. So you worked with Lucinda, and then I'm guessing you just kept branching out and making new connections from there.
Yes, I met a lot of people through her.
Yeah. Are there any of all the people you've collaborated with? Are there any that stand out? Any favorite?
Well, Greg Brown, of course,
work?
we know Greg Brown from being from the same turf that we're from.
Mm-hmm.
And Greg Brown I've worked with since the late 80s. And he's a fantastic songwriter, and I've done a tremendous amount of work with him, produced 6 or 7 of his records and toured all over with him. But I met a lot of people from when I was touring with Lucinda. So,
Yeah, I researching for this interview, I came across a song that you and Greg did called Down at the Mill. And I was like, is this about the mill in Iowa City? I was getting kind of excited.
That's a good song, really good song.
Yeah,
I think
it's great.
I think that's a song about a sawmill.
Yeah, I looked at the lyrics and I was like, maybe it's not about the mill. But you guys have played at the mill a handful of times, right?
Yeah, a ton.
Yeah.
Bunch,
Well,
yeah.
We're all really bummed that they announced that they were closing down.
Yeah. Well, I remember when Keith Dempster owned it. He owned it for 40 years or something. He had it in the 60s, I think. The club's been around a long time.
Yeah.
As has Gabe's. I remember
Right.
walking into Dave's in 1969.
Oh my gosh.
Those rooms have been here a long time.
I have one last question because I am selfish and I am really curious. You sat in on a session with Bob Dylan's band? Did I see that?
Well, I did. I got a call and flew out and met Bob. Yeah, and ended up playing music with him all day. Was which I also really enjoyed.
Yeah, that's incredible. Because he's sort of one of the artists that you maybe listened to when you were growing up, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
so
he's
cool.
one of the, like when I very first started playing guitar, like in high school, that was a voice that struck me. And I remember, trying to pick out some Bob Dylan songs way back when I was like 17. But he's been a major voice and influence to me. And so I
Yeah,
really enjoyed meeting him. Yeah.
that's so cool. Well, I want to thank you again for joining with us and sharing some of your stories today.
Well,
I
thanks.
know you're an inspiration to a lot of folk in Iowa who are like, wow, us Iowa people can. You and a lot of your peers have
Oh, well, I appreciate that. And
accomplished a lot.
yeah, and I sure hope we can all keep doing it. It's what's going on is unsettling, and
Mhm.
I sure hope we can work through it and continue all of our journeys.
But for now, we got blues and barbecue
Cool.
we're working with. Thanks for chatting, Bo.
Thank you very much.